Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fernando Gomez, leader of the unit of the Competitive Advantage and Public Policy for Sustainable Manufacturing at the Institute, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today. Now, I had the distinct honor of introducing our next speaker, Paulo Bartolo, Director of the Singapore Center for 3D Printing at Nanyang Technological University. Paulo will provide us with a unique insight into the capabilities of the 3D Printing Center in Singapore. Paulo, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction. I would like also to thank Professor Alex Elias and Professor Arturo Molina for the invitation to be here. It's a great pleasure, and it has been a great week. I had the pleasure to attend the opening of the IAM lab. Pleasure to meet local authorities, industry, and many colleagues. And I have no doubts that what you are doing in the state of Nuevo León is the right thing. So you are. I don't have any doubts that you have a bright future ahead. Well, as it was mentioned, I'm a professor at Nanyang Technological University. This is a relatively young university, research-intensive university, quite strong in science and engineering, especially in the areas of material science, civil engineering, electronics, mechanical engineering, and also computer science. And similar to Tech Monterrey, with strong links with industry. This is part of our DNA. In our campus, we have more than 250 companies, and we have also major collaborations with industry in the form of Corp Lab. A few examples includes the Corp Lab with HP, which is the largest Corp Lab outside United States, and the Corp Lab with Rolls-Royce, which is also the largest Corp Lab outside UK. Well, at NTU, I'm the Executive Director of the Singapore Center for 3D Printing. This is a research center funded by the National Research Foundation, industry, and supported by NTU and by the Economic Development Board. And we are looking to all aspects related to additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing is a strategic technology for Singapore. And it was assumed by the Singapore government when in 2013 committed 500 million Singapore dollars to further develop the AM ecosystem. As you know, in Singapore, we don't have heavy manufacturing industry, so our economy relies on knowledge and light manufacturing. So additive manufacturing and robotics play a key role for many industrial sectors in Singapore. Singapore was an early adopter of AM, so it is not strange to see Singapore as a leading country according to the 3D Printing Index. And to give you an idea about the relevance of this technology for Singapore, if you consider the Asian region, 1/3 of the industrial AM machines are located in Singapore. We have a vibrant AM ecosystem, so 25% of the global AM companies have a presence in Singapore. And the ecosystem consists of a large number of startup companies, service bureaus, regulators, and of course research centers such as the Singapore Center for 3D Printing. We are a pan-university center. We have 48 faculty members working with us, 95 PhD students, 41 research fellows, and the activities are supported by 15 technical staff and administrative people. We are very happy because the center was recently considered the best center in the Asia Pacific and one of the best centers in the world. And we have also very strong links with industry. Currently, we have 6 active industrial joint labs and 3 active research, innovation, and development labs. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about these 2 concepts later. Well, at the center we are covering the entire value chain of additive manufacturing, from design till process digitization. And our research activities are organized around 8 pillars, 5 directly linked with key industrial sectors in Singapore, 2 cross-sectorial pillars. One is future of manufacturing, which is about smart manufacturing, and the other one is design for 3D printing. And then we are hosting and coordinating Dynamic Hub at NTU. Dynamic stands for the National Additive Manufacturing Innovation Cluster. It was an initiative launched by the government of Singapore in 2015, aiming to promote the adoption of AM and to build the AM ecosystem in Singapore. And we are coordinating this hub. The electronics pillar, and I'm going only to mention this, was the most recent pillar that we established at the center for a couple of reasons. And one is because electronics is a very important industrial sector in Singapore. And the second reason is because this is an area growing very fast in the world. So by 2022, the market size of 3D printed electronics was lower than $500 million US dollars, but it is expected to grow till close to $3 billion US dollars by 2029. So we are the unique center in Singapore having capabilities to print electronics, and we are using this lab to print PCBs, biosensors, to print non-planar antennas, and flexible electronics, as you can see in this slide. I mentioned that we have strong links with industry, and we have different models of collaboration with industry. We have proof of concept projects, basically funded by us through dynamic money, and the aim is to, as I mentioned, promote the adoption of technology and to establish a long-term relationship with industry. We have also the normal one-to-one projects and industrial joint labs. These are major industrial collaborations, fully funded by industry, typically comprising a minimum of 2-3 projects and a minimum duration of 2 years. And then we have research, innovation, and development laboratories, partnerships with industry, but in this case, the companies, instead of supporting the collaboration with cash, they give us technology. And in return, we work with those companies in 3 main areas. One is focusing on people response to training, workshops, seminars, and the aim is to promote the adoption of the technology. The second domain is demonstration, so developing case studies with our researchers and students. And finally, development, more fundamental research projects. In this case, we seek for alternative funding sources, and the aim is to license any technology that we develop by the end of those projects to these companies. We have 3 research, innovation, and development labs with 3 companies operating in the space of polymer-based AM, Arberg, Cellink, and Extrabolt, and we are now discussing similar arrangements with 2 companies operating in the space of metal AM. I would like also to mention 2 examples of industrial joint labs. One is a joint lab that we started early last year with esteemed at core, focusing on large AM part qualification and comprising 3 projects. One is related to ultrasonic microstructure. The second project is related to the assessment of impact of defects on mechanical properties. And the third related to the development of damage tolerance models for large metal AM parts. The second example of joint lab is a joint lab that we have with Panasonic. We finished the first phase of the joint lab. The first phase was related to the development of technology to transform common carbon-based materials into highly porous graphene materials, and technologies to print such highly porous graphene on top of different types of substrates, paper, glass, fabrics, to create smart and flexible devices. We are starting a second phase of the joint lab. in a totally different direction. So we are focusing on multi-material printing, electromagnetic materials, focusing on components for electrical motors. Well, to run over all of our research activities, we need to have state-of-the-art technology. So at the center, we have all types of AM technologies except binder jetting technology. So that's why we need to have a discussion with GE technology. We have commercial available machines. We are developing also our own systems, as I will go to show you. We don't have any commercial available sheet lamination technology. We are developing our own metal sheet lamination process. And as I mentioned, we are developing our own systems. So to give you an idea about our machine portfolio, these are some of our industrial-based machines. So we have a range of direct energy deposition machines, hybrid systems, several metal powder bed fusion machines, not only from EOS, but also from SLM Solutions, and then a range of other machines for polymeric materials, ceramics, and composite materials. And, as I mentioned, we are developing our own systems. One example is shown here. So this is a powder bed fusion platform that we are developing to test different fabrication strategies, beam shaping, in situ alloying. This is an area quite strong at the center, especially for biomedical applications. We have a couple of patents related to in situ alloying of titanium-64, tantalum, titanium, niobium, to create metal plates with improved biocompatibility and reduced stress shielding effects. We're developing other devices for this platform, and another example is shown here. So this is a scanning system being used to assess the powder bed quality, considering three main parameters: roughness, density, and thickness. Regarding to powder bed fusion systems, we are also developing in-space manufacturing technology. So as you know, contrary to what's happening in our labs, where due to gravity, particles settle, in the space, due to the absence of gravity, particles scatter. There are different strategies to address this issue. One is using a centrifugal chamber. In our case, we are using acoustic waves to manipulate and to position particles in a three-dimensional space. And this can be visible in this video showing the change in position of this particle in a three-dimensional space by changing the acoustic wave. And if we induce any disruption to the particle, once we stop this disruption, the particle returns to the original configuration. So our aim is to combine this acoustic wave system together with laser beam for material consolidation for in-space manufacturing. We are developing gantry systems, robotic systems, and we are also exploring mobile robots. This is an example. In this case, we have two mobile robots to print a large concrete printing. Not very complex in terms of control, because each mobile robot has a very well-defined printing region, so there is only a very small region of potential collision. But we are working also on much more complex systems, and this is one example. So in this case, we have a cooperative printing process, so two gantry systems controlling two filament-based printing heads, printing two different materials, but printing these materials in common regions, which requires much more complex and sophisticated path planning and collision avoidance algorithms. And of course, we are also using, if you don't mind to play the video, the robotic system to print large objects. And this is an iconic product. It's a 3D printed bathroom unit. This was the first version of the bathroom unit. It was printed in two parts because we had a limitation due to a sealing issue. We solved this problem, and in the second phase, we printed the bathroom unit in a single stage, reducing from 12 hours into 9 hours the printing time. we published a paper in Journal of Cleaner Production showing also that by using 3D printing, we achieve a cost reduction in 48% compared to a traditional method, and a reduction in CO2 emissions in 89%. The bathroom unit was fully certified by the Building and Construction Authority of Singapore, and we licensed the materials and the technology to a construction company in Singapore. We are developing also different types of printing heads, and talking about construction, this is a variable geometry nozzle, so changes the configuration in order to avoid the typical stair-step effect that we have in additive manufacturing, especially in curved surfaces, and particularly critical when we use high layer thickness. So with this variable geometry nozzle, we achieve very good surface finishing. And finally, this is the most recent lab, fully dedicated for building and construction. We have two gantry systems, and inside this lab, we have the capabilities to print a small unifamiliar house. Well, I mentioned that one of our pillars is design for 3D printing. I mentioned also that in all the different research pillars, we cover the entire value chain of additive manufacturing, which starts with design for 3D printing. And within the design for 3D printing, we are focusing on things like design for sustainability, design with non-conventional materials, design to minimize post-processing, and also design for lightweighting. We are using topology optimization, but we are also using different types of lattice structures. We have a project with an aerospace company based in Singapore, ST Engineering, where we are investigating different types of lattice units, creating a library, developing design rules for the assembly of these different units, and machine learning tools to design parts using the different lattice units that we have in our library. And we are using lattice structures for a range of applications, including shock absorbers, heat exchangers, valves, and other products like this AFO, which was designed and developed in partnership with clinicians from the Singapore General Hospital for a patient suffering from a specific type of diabetes, limiting the mobility of the lower part of the leg. This is part of a joint lab that we have with the Singapore General Hospital, focusing on the use of additive manufacturing to print different types of biomodels and medical devices. Well, but when we create a lattice structure, of course that it is important to understand the behavior of each unit cell, but it is also important to understand the impact of the technique, the fabrication technique that we use to create a lattice structure. And we show that in a paper that we published last year, when we use a reentrant lattice unit to create a lattice structure, and we printed this lattice structure using two different technologies. We use electron beam melting, not a GE, but an RCAM machine, and a laser powder bed fusion machine. And basically, due to the different thermal conditions, we obtain a totally different microstructure, which had an impact on the mechanical properties, energy absorbance of the lattice structure. So it is important, of course, to pay attention to the design and the behavior of the different units, but the process plays a critical role. And I'm going to mention this a little bit more in detail later. Well, additive manufacturing, and every time that I design additive manufacturing, I mentioned that for us, additive manufacturing is a platform for materials design. And this is what we are doing at the Singapore Center for 3D Printing. And we are designing materials for different types of applications according to our different research pillars. For example, for building and construction, we are developing formulations comprising fly ash, incorporating recyclable glass, using synthetic sand to replace natural sand, always with the aim that is to reduce the amount of cement or the use of natural sand to minimize the environmental impact of these construction materials. We are also certifying materials, and one example is shown here. This was a project together with a marine and offshore company in Singapore, Keppel, and with Lloyd's Register. We certify H36 in the form of powder and wire for direct energy deposition. In a totally different area, we are using additive manufacturing to design biomaterials for biomedical applications. And one example is shown here. So we spent a couple of years developing our own electroactive scaffolds. If you don't know, a scaffold is a biocompatible and biodegradable porous structure, three-dimensional porous structure, designed to support cell attachment, proliferation, and differentiation in order to create a new tissue. So we designed these scaffolds containing biodegradable non-conductive polymers and certain amounts of conductive materials. And we use multi-wall carbon nanotubes of graphene. It was important to identify the critical value of these conductive materials to avoid any cytotoxicity. And we tested in the lab and also preliminary tests with small animals, rats. We created critical size defects in the calvario of rats, and we use our electroactive scaffolds and compare the performance of our electric scaffolds with non-conductive scaffolds using or not an external electrical stimulation. And what we observed was that by combining the use of these electroactive scaffolds and external stimulation, it was possible to accelerate angiogenesis, so the formation of the vascular system, and mineralization, obtaining a more organized bone. We are testing the same scaffolds with large animals now, using sheep, and we are also moving from the concept of electroactive scaffolds, because this requires the use of an external electrical stimulation source, towards the concept of piezoelectric scaffolds. But nevertheless, some of the lessons that we took from this project help us in designing more complex scaffolds, in this case for bone cancer applications. So as you know, in the case of bone cancer, the most common clinical approach is by tumor resection, but fatality and recurrence rate is quite high because it's difficult to remove all the cancer cells. So to address that, we design what we call it as a dual function scaffold, controlling the amount of graphene or graphene oxide to have two different functions. So the outer layers of our scaffold were designed to contain very critical levels of graphene. This promotes high levels of reactive oxygen species, inducing oxidative stress. And we realized that cancer cells are more sensitive to these high levels of reactive oxygen species than healthy cells. So what was our major task was to identify the critical value of graphene to produce enough reactive oxygen species killing the cancer cells without having any impact on the healthy cells. And then the core region of the scaffold contained relatively small amounts of graphene, taking the advantage of the high mechanical properties of graphene and the electrical conductivity to attract, to recruit new cells from the surrounding tissue, promoting the formation of new bone. Another important area in terms of material design is related to the use of additive manufacturing to print smart materials. So materials that can change their shape, color, properties in response to variations of environmental conditions, temperature, pH, humidity. One example is shown in this video. So this is a gripper in action without supplying any electrical current, changing the shape in response to changes in temperature. This gripper was printed using an extrusion machine and a PETG-based material, but we can design a gripper sensitive to other stimuli, like shown here, where we use laser powder bed fusion machine to create magnetic responsive grippers using thermoplastic polyurethane powders mixed with nanoparticles. And we are designing different types of smart materials. We are using artificial intelligence to design the different blocks or the different architectures of these materials in order to achieve a specific performance. Let me give you more details using one recent example, and this is related to stretchable electronics. Very important for soft robotics, for electronic skin, for wearable devices, but presenting a challenge. And the challenge is the difficulty to create a single component showing high electrical properties, self-filling, shape morphing, and stretch stability. We solved this problem by designing an hydrogel, a dual cross-linkable hydrogel, comprising covalently cross-linkable acrylic acid and iron ions through the formation of a reversible ionical network. We tested the hydrogels, bending, twisting, stretching, and the results show super stretch stability. So it was possible to stretch the material 17 times its original size. The materials show also self-healing, and we demonstrated that by cutting a single component into pieces and then putting the two pieces together at room temperature during 1 hour to recreate the original single component. And the recreated single component exhibited again high stretch stability. We printed the different types of shape morphing materials, soft and pneumatic actuators. And we show also that the developed hydrogel presents touch stability properties. And we demonstrated that by printing one-dimensional touch strips and two-dimensional touch panels. We connected the touch panel with electrodes interfaced with the monitor through sensing circuits. And one of the final tests, unfortunately I don't have the video, but the video will be available in Advanced Science, was to interface the touch panel with a modified Tetris game. And by using our touch panel, it was possible to control the movement and orientation of the Tetris pieces. Well, among the different technologies that we have at the center, there is one technology particularly relevant for the fabrication of large metal parts and also for the repair of metallic structures. And this is direct energy deposition. We have a range of commercial available machines, laser powder blown, laser wire, hybrid systems. We're also developing our own machines, and one example is shown here. This is a mobile powder blown system that it was designed and developed to repair the rails of the SMRT in Singapore. This is a very interesting technology characterized by, as you know, high build rates, but the 3D printed parts experience very complex thermal conditions leading to heterogeneous microstructures. So this is an area where we are putting lots of efforts to understand the impact of these thermal conditions on the microstructure and mechanical properties. We are using DED to design different materials, including functional graded structures. And one recent material that we decided to explore, it's nickel aluminum bronze alloy, due to its relevance for aerospace and marine and offshore applications. We had a project with Keppel, a marine and offshore company in Singapore, where we use DED to create a bimetallic structure using nickel aluminum alloy and 15.5 pH. And the aim was to create a part with high mechanical properties and corrosion resistance. Through process optimization, it was possible to obtain a very well-defined and well-bonded interface. And this was essentially to the synergetic effect of a liquid phase separation, Maragoni convention, and atom diffusion, forming a dendritic interface and ferroalloys. But for this material, there is limited knowledge on the effect of the thermal conditions on the microstructure and mechanical properties. So this is an area where we are trying to understand and develop strategies to improve the performance of parts. So we published a paper recently, and DD et al. Part. And the results show, as expected, an heterogeneous microstructure from the top to the bottom, with consequences in terms of the mechanical properties. And this was essentially due to the dominant effect of conduction in the cooling process. And as we move the melt pool from the substrate, the conduction effect becomes less effective. So in the paper, we discuss also strategies to control the input energy or using other external sources in order to allow to have a better control on the microstructure and on the mechanical properties of the parts. Another example about how can we design performance by controlling the microstructure is again related to bone scaffolds. So in this case, we produced PCL-TCP, bioceramic material, using two different fabrication routes. In one case, we use a melt printing process characterized by a temperature-induced crystallization, leading to the formation of large and interconnected spherolytic structures. And the second was a solvent printing approach. So we create a ink using dichloromethane. And this process was characterized by a strain-induced crystallization, leading to the formation of relatively small and fragmented lamella-like structures and Shishkebach crystals. And as a consequence of this different microstructure, we printed scaffolds with the same geometrical characteristics, but totally different properties, biological properties, physiochemical properties. The scaffolds that we produce through the melt printing route show high mechanical properties. Printed filaments were quite stiff, and when we seeded the scaffolds with cells, we observe the formation of large levels of YAP promoting cell proliferation. While in the case of the scaffolds printed using the solvent printing strategy, they exhibited high surface roughness, fast degradation and stress relaxation. And this fast degradation and stress relaxation created a more dynamic environment that promotes an early stage osteogenic behavior. So totally different mechanisms, same materials, same architecture, but because we change the microstructure, we induce a different performance. I'm going to finish with a final example, and this is related to how can we use additive manufacturing also to design parts aiming to achieve a specific performance. And I'm going to show the next slide, and I'm very sorry for it because it contains lots of blood. Oh, so sorry, not this one. So this is part of complete study where we are developing software tools to design the performance of the part. So we develop nucleation models, crystallization models that are coupled with thermal models to describe things like crystal orientation, crystal size, crystallinity during the fabrication process. And we are using this tool to design the anisotropy of the parts. I mentioned one of these days that this is particularly critical. Anisotropy in these cases are related to the layer-by-layer fabrication process and also to the cooling process. We are not paying attention to the layer-by-layer process. We are focusing on the anisotropy induced by the cooling process. I think that the next slide has some blood, so sorry for it. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was impressed with a situation that I saw in Turkey with patients, refugees from Syria, and suffering from significant bone loss issues. And the only alternative for the clinicians were amputation. So we decided to develop a strategy to address this issue. We developed anatomically designed scaffolds, multi-material scaffolds, and we are testing these scaffolds in chips after several studies. And such kind of defect was never tried before. The only problem is that we are designing these scaffolds for time equals to 0, so for today. We don't know the long-term behavior of these scaffolds, and this requires extensive animal studies. That's why we are using artificial intelligence. So the idea is to train the networks with histological images, and through this in silico animal study platform that we are developing to understand the long-term behavior of scaffolds by changing the architecture or by changing the material composition. And with this, I finish my talk. I promise to keep the presentation on time. Again, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Paulo. Please have a seat. We have time for a few questions, please. If here in the audience, in the room, are some questions, no? Yes, Dr. Arturo Molina, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Paulo. Great examples of what you are doing in research. My question is financing. How do you finance all the research now in Singapore, at least in NTU? What are the sources of funding, and how you achieve to do so much?
Yeah, so that is an excellent question, because when I arrived in Singapore, I was scared because of it. So the center is a center funded by the National Research Foundation, and the funding ends in 2024. So when I arrived in Singapore, the message was, okay, as director of the center, you need to seek for the financial sustainability of the center. And that is what we are doing. So to give you an idea, based on the last financial year, we signed around 1 million Singapore dollars in research contracts per month. Of course, this requires lots of work from everybody. We have 2 business engagement persons. They are responsible for knocking the door of companies. I mentioned yesterday during our dinner that, again, when I arrived, I realized that the number of industrial projects were not enough. So on the beginning, we decided to organize what we call it as Innovation Day. And in the Innovation Day, we invited companies, of course, that we knew the profile of the companies. And for the meeting, we invited colleagues with the right profile. And during the meeting, we asked companies, okay, tell us what are your problems or challenges? And my aim was at the end of the meeting to have a potential projects to address those challenges. So a challenge, and by the way, we are now a sustainable center.
Is there another question? Yeah, Dr. Adora.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I really enjoy it. Magnificent. So I saw that you put some lamella in there. I was wondering which semi-crystalline polymers have you studied? I mean,
so the slides that I show were based on polycaprolactone. But we are using different types of polymers, yeah. But the results were for polycaprolactone, the scaffolds, yeah.
Okay. Is there another question in the room? Or if we have some questions by the online? Okay.
Thank you, Professor Paulo, for your presentation. And I wanted to ask you something more technical. When you talked about this material system that you can tailor, the properties, are you using some kind of a localized cooling, or what ways to change the crystallinity?
So in the polymer case?
Right.
Oh, so yeah. So that was part of the first phase of a program. And basically our aim is to understand the effect of processing conditions on the microstructure, develop mathematical models, create a database, and then using a new type of printing head, and a diabatic printing head, and a camera to record temperature, and throughout the process being able to adjust in real-time processing conditions to change the microstructure. So this is what we are doing.
Okay, if there are no questions here, I have one from the online audience, and it's very punctual. Are there any postdoctoral positions available at Singapore Center for 3D Printing, either through the university or the Singapore government?
Yeah, so I should not say this in a university, but there are opportunities for PhD students through some grants funded by the Singapore government. And before answering this question, what we are in the discussion with Tech Monterrey and also with Hunam through this National Additive Manufacturing Platform is for you in Mexico to have a kind of PhD on additive manufacturing linked with us, allowing us to receive your students during 1 year in Singapore. So this was a discussion that we had on the beginning of the week, and this is something that we will further develop in the next couple of days. Regarding the postdocs, so we finished a post for 2 postdocs, but yes, so my email was shown, send me an email because we are going to open more positions.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more question. Dr.
It's about the polymer orientation of these polymer chains. I was wondering if have you done some research about it?
Yeah. So again, I mentioned only thermoplastic materials, but and in the case of the smart materials, the examples, the main process is a ionically cross-linked process. But we develop, in this case, using plant-based polymers, pectin. We develop a kind of smart bio-ink. So initially, we developed that ink to follow free radical polymerization, and we obtained very good results, but we were not happy because basically we were not providing extra internal free space for cells to grow. So then we decided to move from a free radical polymerization process into a click chemistry, and we had also degradable peptides. And these degradable peptides allow us to create more space throughout time to allow cells to grow. So the answer is, depending on the application, yes, we are exploring thermoplastics, thermosetting materials, different types of polymerization strategies.
Thank you very much. Do we have time or? Okay, so we have 2 more minutes, and I will continue with the idea of Dr. Arturo Molina in personal interest is how the government direct and fund these initiatives.
So I forgot to mention something important, that I think that based on my relatively small or short experience from Monterrey, you have the same environment. Well, I spent 20 years of my career in Portugal as professor at the Polytechnic Institute of Leiria, and 7 years in UK at University of Manchester. in all of these cases, I never had a chance to convince a company to give me technology for free. In Singapore, I found a different environment. So we signed this industrial joint lab with esteemed at core. And I presented this in June or July in France. esteemed is a French organization. And several colleagues were scandalized because they mentioned, oh, this company is paid by the taxpayers in France, and they are investing in Singapore. Well, I think that one of the reasons is all the companies, or the government is providing lots of support to companies in Singapore, but they want to see some return of that investment. I mentioned also to some of you a story. So the Economic Development Board provides scholarships to companies. And this means that if a company identifies one of their employees as a suitable candidate for the PhD, EDB pays the salary of that person. And we were in a discussion with a large software company, I'm not going to say the name, a very large software company with a presence in Singapore, and we approached EDB requesting 2 scholarships. And the answer was no, because this company is not investing in Singapore. So the government is forcing. The second is the government. Government is allocated lots of money for research. But you need to understand that in Singapore, we don't have any natural resources. So the economy of Singapore is based on knowledge, on innovation. So that's why it's important to invest in knowledge and technology and innovation.
Thank you very much. The time is right, so thank you very much, Paulo Bartolo, for
Thank you very
the
much.
conference. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have a present for you.